What is that noise? We're all set, Arnie. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Joanne, and welcome everybody to the April 19th, 2023 meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission. We'll open with a roll call. Ms. Hofstetter?
Here.
Mr. Kiokio?
Here.
Mr. Sylvain?
Here.
Mr. Haas?
Here.
And Chairman Finaldi is here, so we do not need to seat any alternates, which is a good thing because we don't have any alternates. So all present and accounted for. Before we move to the acceptance of the minutes, I'll read the standard Zoom meeting introduction. If you'll indulge me.
Why is it doing that?
Everything okay? Joe?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. This meeting of the Danbury Planning Commission is being held on Zoom as a virtual meeting. Even though this meeting is a virtual meeting, members of the public and interested parties continue to have the opportunity to participate in the meeting in a couple of different ways. You can participate via Zoom and see the audio and the video, or you can call in by phone and participate via audio only. Please be aware that we may have to mute your microphone or telephone in order to avoid an echo or some other background noise. Instructions on how to participate in the meeting appear on the City of Danbury website, and all of the documents and materials that apply to the matters to be discussed during this meeting, including the agenda, are also available on the City of Danbury website. As always, if you have any questions regarding how to participate in the meeting, please contact the City of Danbury Planning and Zoning Department. As a reminder, the entire meeting will be posted on and can be seen on the City of Danbury website. We will follow the posted agenda as per standard practice. If prior to the meeting, any questions or comments on agenda items were submitted via email to the Planning and Zoning Department, those comments will be read during the appropriate portion of the meeting. Finally, please remember that technology glitches sometimes do occur. Please be patient if that happens.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
for the record, I will recuse myself from participating in the application submitted by Tower Investment Group LLP, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sylvain. It's duly noted. Mr. Sylvain will again recuse himself from the first public hearing this evening. Thank you. For the record, our next, with acceptance of the minutes, the minutes were distributed. I believe Joanne sent everybody an email on April 18th. There was one minor correction as per her email. On page 4, the phrase access only was changed to the phrase ingress only. That was the only change to the minutes. So if somebody would like to make a motion to accept the minutes of our previous meeting, of the March 27th meeting, please do so and indicate with the change that Joanne sent to us. Do I hear a motion? Helen? Oh, you're muted. You're muted. You're muted.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes with the corrections indicated, for acceptance.
Thank you for the motion made to accept the minutes as revised. Is there a second?
Second, Kevin, I'll second it.
Mr. Sylvain, thank you very much. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The minutes of the March 27th meeting are accepted. Let the record show our next meeting is scheduled for May 3rd, 2023. And with that, we will move right to our first public hearing this evening. I will start by reading the legal notice. Notice is hereby given that the Planning Commission of the City of Danbury will hold a public hearing commencing at 7:30 p.m. on Wednesday, April 19th, 2023, in a web-based meeting hosted on Zoom to consider the following matter: Tower Investment Group LLP, application for special exception site plan approval for apartment house, The Legacy on Main, bank trip generation in excess of 500 vehicle trips per day, section 3E2, and required parking in excess of 100 spaces, section 5F2B. In the CCBD zone, 30 and 34 Main Street, I-15254 and I-15335, special exception number 792. A copy of this application is on file in the Planning and Zoning Office for public inspection. Public parties in interest and citizens shall have an opportunity to be heard at this time. Agenda to be posted will include instructions on how to access the Zoom meeting and application materials and view the meeting in real time on Zoom, on YouTube rather. Arnold D. Finaldi Jr., Chairman, posted on City website and Town Clerk's office on April 4th, 2023. Published in News Times on April 7th, 2023 and April 14th, 2023, purchase order number 2022-174. Now, again, one more time for the record. Tower Investment Group LLP, application for special exception site plan approval for apartment house, The Legacy on Main, bank trip generation in excess of 500 vehicle trips per day, section 3E2, and required parking in excess of 100 spaces, section 5F2B, in the CCBD zone 30 and 34 Main Street, I-15254 and I-15335, special exception number 792. Commission members, several pieces of documentation have been previously distributed. Hopefully everyone had an opportunity to review those. And with that, I will ask, is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application? Attorney Beecher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, members of the commission. For the record, my name is Tom Beecher and I represent Tower Investment Group LLP. And Tower is the owner of number 34 and number 30 Main Street, which is the subject of this application. With me this evening are Ben Dodo, our project engineer, Phil Clark from Claris Design Build, and Joe Balskas, our traffic engineer. Dr. Donald Poland, our planning consultant, and Abigail Adams, our landscape architect, are both on vacation this week. So they will present their report and plans respectively at the next hearing date. This is a combined 2.4 acre property that's located in the CCBD zone. Our proposed project consists of the conversion of the existing office building at 30 Main Street into apartments. The bank will remain on the ground floor of that apartment building throughout this process. The project also includes the construction of an additional apartment building to the rear of this property. This new building will have a parking garage and 4 floors of apartments above the garage. And when it's completed, there will be a total of 208 apartments. 48 apartments in the existing building to be converted, and 160 units in the new building. The breakdown of the units is that there will be 108 efficiency units, 120 one-bedroom units, and just 16 two-bedroom units. The apartment complex will be known as the Legacy on Main. Joe Balskas is going to methodically take you through his conclusions, but in a nutshell, because we are going from an existing office use to this residential use, the change in uses will have very little impact upon the traffic, existing traffic in this area of Main Street. There will be a total of 303 parking spaces on the site, with 250 of those spaces being located in the new garage. Currently, there are only 162 parking spaces on the site. But by consolidating many of those parking spaces into the garage, we're actually going to be slightly reducing the impervious surface of this site. And Ben can show you that in a few minutes. This site is served by municipal sewer and water. And for the record, this special exception application is for approval of this project as a trip generator. And also this property is located in the CCBD zone, and therefore we're also seeking a special exception approval due to the fact that the proposed use includes more than 100 parking spaces, which is a requirement in the CBD zone regulations. We believe that the Legacy on Main will be beneficial addition to the redevelopment of downtown Danbury. This project is consistent with the new plan of conservation and development, which actually focuses on the redevelopment of downtown Danbury and further focuses on offering new apartment opportunities. It's also consistent with a few of the goals set forth in the recent affordable housing plan. And lastly, while this site is not specifically within the 4 corners of the downtown Danbury transit-oriented development study, or TOD, area, we believe that the construction of these proposed apartment buildings is consistent with some of the stated objectives contained within that study. The new plan of conservation and development states that the downtown TOD study, which the POCD incorporated by reference, the downtown TOD study recommends supporting redevelopment and infill development with a focus on introducing new housing to the downtown and increasing the downtown's population. Our project fits this goal perfectly. It is the redevelopment within the existing office building and its infill development on the site by adding an additional apartment building and the garage. The phrase infill development means construction on unused or underutilized properties within an urban area consistent with the existing or proposed development schemes or patterns which you find in these studies and in the POCD. The POCD states that multiple stakeholders and residents in Danbury express support for the concept of increasing housing supply in the downtown. One recommendation was to allow high-density residential development in the downtown. POCD also notes that downtown Danbury already has the infrastructure and services, including sewer and water, to support high-density residential development. There is also existing transportation infrastructure and transit services, according to the POCD. In other words, your POCD says the city is ready, so please bring us your development project, and here we are. The conclusions of the POCD regarding housing include the broad goal of continued and expanded efforts by the city and private developers to ensure that Danbury's growing housing needs are met. There is a consistent theme in all three planning documents, the POCD, the TOD study, and the Affordable Housing Plan, which is there is a need to expand housing supply and housing choice in Danbury, particularly apartments and particularly downtown. In its review of the POCD, the City Council and its members supported this effort to encourage both housing development and redevelopment opportunities in the downtown area. The downtown TOD study states that, quote, the market potential for downtown housing is strong, with an estimated demand for 1,200 units over the next decade. This growing market interest in living downtown is expected to provide its most significant economic development opportunity, close quote. The report predicts that the increase in residential development downtown will clearly be an economic benefit for the downtown area, as downtown retailers, restaurants, and businesses will have a new audience to attract and to cater to. Dr. Poland summarizes this thought in his report by stating, quote, retail follows rooftops, unquote. The downtown Danbury transit-oriented study area ends just south of Elmwood Place, where it intersects Main Street. This project property is less than 700 feet south of that particular area. The TOD area was defined in part as the land area within a 10-minute walk of the Danbury train station. An extra 700 feet adds a couple of minutes, still walkable. The vision is to build up, according to the TOD study, a vibrant area to live, work, shop, study, and play. And that's a quote. We hope to be a part of that. And speaking of walkability, these apartments would be a short walkable distance away from Rogers Park, a grocery store, and other shops and restaurants. The Affordable Housing Plan that this commission adopted last year obviously has a focus on the creation of additional housing units that fit the statutory definition of affordable housing. However, there are some broader goals within this plan. One of the goals of the Affordable Housing Plan is to increase the supply of housing in Danbury's downtown. This all sounds familiar. The plan also indicates that there is a clear need for more rental housing. The housing plan notes that only 4% of the city's housing stock consists of studio or efficiency apartments. The Legacy on Main includes 108 efficiency apartments. The report projects that if there were more nice and new market rate rental units, the supply and demand side of these new apartments coming online is that they will drive down the monthly rental rates of certain existing rental units because of the competition from the new ones. And that would result in additional, more affordable housing in the city of Danbury. On that topic, this project will be rental apartments and they will be market rate apartments. The Nolan family, however, owns and manages several housing communities that do include statutory affordable housing units. In the South Main Street area alone, they own and manage over 100 units of statutory affordable housing, such as at Harrison Square and the Palace View Senior Housing Complex. With the clear majority of these apartments being efficiency and one-bedroom apartments, this project will not have any kind of real impact on the Danbury school system, as Dr. Poland reported to you, and he will summarize next time when he's able to be here. And if you've not had a chance to read his report, I commend it to you. I found parts of it fascinating, and I'm not just saying it. For instance, Dr. Poland reports that Danbury is growing while the rest of Fairfield County and the state lag well behind Danbury's growth rate. And in addition to the various reasons that I've cited above with regard to the studies, projects such as these are good for Danbury and particularly the downtown. And there is a competing economic problem of the downturn in the need for office space. I'm sure you've read the articles and studies about the shrinking need for brick and mortar office space due to the new normal of remote work arising out of the pandemic. Brick and mortar retail and office space has taken a hit over the last several years, and you will hear me say that in relation to a few upcoming applications. This project and others are forward-thinking, proactive plans and projects. The idea is to be proactive and to look at adaptive reuse and how to avoid the downward spiral of vacancy, then abandonment or blight due to the glut of vacant office space in existence and on the horizon. Dr. Poland states that planning must also react to changes in demographics and generational preferences. The dream of owning a single-family home with a lawn to mow is not necessarily the life dream of people far younger than I am. Many younger people prefer the type of housing that the Legacy on Main will offer for a variety of reasons, including being downtown and a more affordable living option. In any event, Dr. Poland will go through his thoughts and summarize his analysis and conclusions next time. Let me cover a few specific items related to the site. There are no wetlands on this site, but the property is downhill from and within 100 feet of a small patch of wetlands to the north of this property. Just so you're aware, the EIC unanimously approved our application and this project last week. The Deputy Fire Marshal report states that his office is satisfied and that the project will not affect in any negative way the fire department's access to on our site, as well as access to the surrounding existing locations. The building official and Rob Barone of Construction Services had some suggestions, and Ben will take you through those in a couple of minutes. And in fact, at this point, it's probably a good time to turn it over to Ben. And after Ben, Phil Clark will take you through the building design, and then Joe Balskis will give his traffic report. Ben?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Benjamin Dodo, licensed professional engineer in the office at 248 Main Street, here tonight representing the applicant. Before I share my screen, I just want to touch on a couple things. I'm just going to correct the amount of efficiency units. We actually have 72 efficiency units, 120 one-bedroom units, and 16 two-bedroom units. So again, the bulk of the units are efficiencies in one bedrooms, but the number is 72 and 120 for the efficiencies in one bedroom units.
That
Phil
was
can
the math major.
I just wanted to make sure I had my parking right, Tom. Anyway, so just a little touch on it. I'm not going to repeat everything that Tom said, but before I share the site plan with you, I just want to say this has been a couple year project, just getting it to you in working with the owner, with Tom, with Claris, and with Joe. A little over a year ago, we did have a pre-app with city staff. We showed them some preliminary plans that we had, and the plans that you see today actually do reflect some of the preliminary comments that we had received from town staff, city staff a year ago. And what we have in front of you today is a slightly different with incorporating some of those comments. I'm going to share my screen now. Can everyone see this?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. So here's a site right here. We're with north being up. To the right on the plan is building 1. Everyone's familiar with that building. It's a 5-story building. The upper 4 floors are bigger than the first floor. There's sort of an overhang, and you can see that with a color hatch. The proposed building is building number 2 here in the rear. And this is going to be in the back. Basically, within the limits, I'm tracing, for those of you that are familiar with the site, the existing parking lot limits are all in here. So you can see we're basically, as Tom mentioned, it's an infill. We're putting the existing building inside the existing parking lot footprint. One of the main features of the site that we're able to do is we're demolishing 34. It's a white building right here. And by taking that building down, we're able to take this sort of awkward driveway that those of you who've been through the site to the site are familiar with. It's a sharp right turn in, and then to exit the site, you actually have to drive past the bank drive-through to leave the site as well. Well, we're closing that driveway, and it's allowing us to build a brand new 30-foot wide standard driveway to access the site. We're raising the grade here where we currently have 2 or 3 steps to get up to the bank. Those handicap spaces will all be flush with the main entrance. Right now you have several steps and a handicap access ramp. Putting a new sidewalk connecting the new sidewalk that we're putting in the front to the site. There'll be a sidewalk and a pedestrian entrance into the garage. The garage itself will have 2 doors. We went through this, and it's what worked the best with the site. We're going to have a one-way in here at the north, and we're going to have a one-way out over here at the south. So people coming to use the garage can come in, use it. They'll leave here, and you can either go out the main entrance, exit, or if you feel like heading down south on Main Street, you'll be able to use the lane that's already there and do a right turn exit only. And that's sort of what we're modifying this driveway to become. Right now, the site is very awkward. Emergency vehicles can enter the site, but they cannot, when I say emergency vehicles, fire truck, they cannot leave the site currently the way it is. Fire trucks today turn around and go out the entrance there today. That will not happen with what we're proposing. The site will be served by city water, city sewer. It'll have an extensive stormwater management system. It already has one. We're maintaining all existing drainage patterns with the proposal. Both of the buildings will be sprinklered. We're adding a new fire hydrant as requested by the fire marshal over in this area here. and we're bringing a water main into the site to accommodate that. Trash facilities will be handled two ways. We're putting a compactor here to sort of minimize the amount of trash containers we have and keep things clean and organized near the loading zone. And then we're going to have a smaller area here just for recycling. There'll be no trash activities occurring over in this area. The site will have underground power. There'll be sort of a open space area in the back here that the residents can take their pets out and have an area to walk. They'll be able to come down a staircase internal to the units and the garage. It'll be a little lawn and pet walk area. We've also incorporated this concrete maintenance ramp is not for daily use. It's not for residents. It's basically if you had to get a piece of equipment in the backyard or a vehicle back there, it's for solely maintenance purposes only. That'll be normally closed. You'll be able to drive through the garage and access the backyard via that. That was a comment that engineering actually had during the pre-app that we've incorporated into this plan. The proposed water and sewer estimate, we're going to use a total of about 28,000 gallons per day in sewer flow. It's broken down. The front building will be about 7,000 and the rest for the rear building. The sewer line that's currently there for the front building will remain as is. We're proposing a new lateral with the for the rear building. I'm going to flip right now to the renderings that Claris had prepared, only to show you sort of what this is what it currently looks like. Well, this is a drone shot from the air. You can see the main building to the left. That building will be obviously renovated and refaced. There'll be balconies added to it, so the residents have access to the outside. The building that will be torn down is this building here, number 34, and the new driveway will come right through here. And to sort of give you a before and after, this is what it looks like today, an actual photo. Here is sort of a rendering that Claris prepared of what it's going to look like after. Again, this is a rendering, a concept, but you can see the two buildings will match each other in architecture. I'll let Phil go into the details. Front building, we are adding decks and balconies for the residents. And you can see the main driveway pattern, how the new driveway will function compared to the one that we have today, that is basically a very awkward driveway. Here's another look from the front, sort of get a feel of what it's going to look like. There are 3 levels of the parking garage, even though it only looks like 2. The way it was designed was to look like 3, with 4 levels of residential above it in the back. These are just, I'm going to just keep flipping through here, just so you can get a sense. This would be a view from the north, looking toward the rear building. This is the sort of the courtyard. The rear building has a U shape to it. From when if you look on the plan, it's a horseshoe shape. So basically, once you get to the first living level on top of the garage, there's an open air area inside there that allows the interior units to, get some sunlight and some daylight, and also have access to the outside. This is a standard floor plan of the units of the front building. And the rear building, this is sort of, this is what it looks like. The orientation is opposite to the plan. Main Street in this drawing is to the left. And as you keep going up, these are elevations. These were all submitted with the plans along with some typical 1 and 2 bedroom units. All the units well exceed the city's minimum for square foot sizes. I know sometimes that's an issue when units get a little small. I'm going to touch on the drainage and grading right now. I know we haven't received comments from engineering yet, but I do want to touch on that briefly. There is a drainage system that currently exists on site. It runs, drainage patterns here are unique. This portion of Main Street actually drains south. We don't drain to the area in front of Food Bag and Elmwood Park that's always in the news every time it rains heavily. This portion of Main Street actually drains south. Those drainage patterns are going to continue to do so. Right now, there is an underground detention system that is right here that we simply could not keep and didn't want to keep under the building. That the bulk of the site drains to. I'm replacing that with a much larger system, pipe system throughout the site. It's an underground system here. There's also a culvert that comes from the north that drains through the site straight through to the south. We are going to take that and keep that drainage pattern exactly what it's doing, but we're not putting the pipe under the building. So I'm just slightly going to relocate it so that pipe runs this way and continues on, as does our drainage system tie here. There's a system in the rear that comes from Grand Street, the units to our west that drain to us, and then they drain south to the enclave. We're not touching that. We're maintaining that pattern in its existing state. So again, our peak runoff rates will be reduced. The 25-year storm that we analyzed, we're going from about 10 cubic feet per second to about 6.5 with the peak flows. And that's really it as far as the improvements. We did receive some comments from staff. Chairman, do you want me to just touch on them now? Just big picture?
It's your show, Ben.
I think I can answer a lot of questions that you may have if I sort of touch on those. So I'm going to do that briefly here. I'll start with Allie's. Allie Smith gave us comments dated April 13th, and I'm going to leave her first comment to last because one of the neighbors also wrote a letter with respect to that. So that had to do with the neighbor's driveway. There was a letter on file from the neighbor, so I'll leave that one to last. She asked us to label the distance between our driveway and the driveway to the north. It's about 25 feet, but I can do that. There's apparently a new rule. We have to have 10% electric vehicle charging blocks at our parking spaces. So this plan was not designed for that. Next time you see it, we're going to figure out where we put these charging stations. My gut is most of them will be in the inside in the parking garage. So we will get that done on the next set of plans. Allie's next comment had to do with a A101. She asked us to, Allie's comment thought this was a parking space. It's not a parking space. We just forgot to crosshatch it. That's the area when you get out of the elevators. So our parking count was right. We do have 8 spaces there. So we'll get that painted up and crosshatched on the next revisions that you see. The next question had to do with pets. How do pets from the front building, building 1, get to the proposed lawn and pet area in the back? And they can, if they had a pet, they could walk through the building, through the garage, and out the door into the pet area. But the way this is going to be done, and this was thought about with the applicant, pets are only going to be permitted in building number 2. Building number 1 will not allow pets, and that's mainly because there's a bank there. It has a different feel. It's not a complete residential building. So the only pets that could potentially be in building 1 wouldn't technically be pets, they'd be service animals. You can't restrict those. But again, if that service animal needed to go to the pet lawn area, they can use the pedestrian walk here, simply walk through the garage or take an elevator or use a staircase and come out the back just like the residents do if they had to. Ally asked for a photometric plan. We showed light poles on this plan. There will be some building mounted lights in some cases. So we're talking with Claris about that, and we'll get the building mounted lights and the photometric plan to you as well. All existing and proposed utility easements. Yes, we are proposing, as I mentioned, a new water main to be brought into the site. The water main is right here. And the purpose of that water main is to get a fire hydrant requested by the fire marshal and then a service to the building. So we will need to show an easement around this, which we will. The actual sewer service is not a main. That's technically a lateral unless the engineering makes us do otherwise. But again, it's just a connection to the building, so we shouldn't need an easement on that. But we will do it on the water main. And then let's see, floor plans, we will get those to Ally's, but we don't have a floor plan for the first floor of the bank. Because the bank is going to remain unchanged. For those of you familiar with the building, when you walk in, the bank is to the left, which is the Main Street side of the entrance. And the existing offices on that first floor that you see there will simply become the management for this whole complex. So packages will get delivered there. There'll be, however many staff they have, 1 or 2 staff members. So when you come in the building here, this is the bank, and this back area will be the office area. So again, we don't have a floor plan for that. If that's going to remain unchanged, but the building itself, the floor plan, we do have a generic floor plan. I don't think we submitted it to Ally here, but this is right here, A101. This is a standard floor of what building 1 will look like with respect to apartments. The apartments in building 1 are obviously different than building 2 because Claris had to contend with the column system and structural supports that are in that building. You can see them with the black rectangles here. Let's see. Those are Ally's comments. Jim Schullery, the building official, he had really one comment. I did my handicap parking calculation the way I've always done it. The total number of parking spaces, and you do the math. I put 5 inside the garage and I put 3 outside. He wants 2 separate calculations and no rounding, if that makes any sense. So net result, I'm going to have to add 1 handicap space probably right here on site. We're fine in the garage. It's just the way the rounding worked. We're going to have to add 1 more outside. That's not a big deal. That can be accommodated. The fire marshal asked for initially nothing, but in Ally's letter, she mentioned they're going to want some no parking fire lane in the one-way area here. And I think that's here. I'm not sure if they wanted it here as well, but either way, we can add the no parking fire lane striping there. Then Rob Barone's first 4 comments had to do with sidewalks. There was one thing he saw in a survey that said asphalt pavement. He thought I was proposing asphalt. I'm proposing all concrete sidewalks, all concrete aprons. But the one thing that Rob did ask, he asked if we could straighten out the this exit right here like this. And I'll have to run that by Joe, and I'd also like to see what traffic's comments are. I don't want this driveway too close to, right here is the driveway for the gas station to our south. So maybe something we could accommodate, we can accommodate that comment a little. I just have to look at that from a traffic standpoint with Joe. And obviously the DOT is going to have the final say, but could I straighten it out a little bit like this and like this? Yes, I could. I'll just have to talk to Joe about that. But I can't go straight out here like he wants, because it's simply too close to this area right here. But we could probably meet somewhere in the middle with respect to that. Then we haven't received comments from Kelly or traffic engineer Vera yet. We did get a letter from the neighbor, Mr. Prescott, and I'm going to just touch on this. We can go in a little detail later. I don't see him here, so I assume you'll read the letter into the file, but I just want to sort of touch on what his letter asked. Mr. Prescott's building is number 36. His building is right here. For those of you that are familiar with it, it's the Faces building. There's a makeup studio or something in there, and I think an apartment upstairs. He currently has a driveway that's right here. The driveway itself is very steep. So what our plan on our sidewalk improvements are, we're trying to make it a little better. We can't make it much better because he has handicap accessibility. He needs it at his front door. Mr. Prescott does not, he currently uses the existing on-site driveway, and I think it'd be easier for me to show you on this civil, on this, let me get to the survey here. Bear with me, please. This is easier to show. Mr. Prescott currently uses 30 Main, drives through the site, and he accesses he has 3 or 4 or 5 parking spaces right here. He doesn't have an easement to do so. And so that's why the drive he uses, I don't think it gets used often. As I mentioned, it's very steep. But again, with this plan, he's going to be forced to use the driveway that he has and not come through the back of the site like he unofficially does. We've tried to make it a little better. His driveway grade, and this was one of Ally's comments, is at about 22% right now. When I say grade, right in the front here, the first 10 or 15 feet to the sidewalk. We're trying to flatten it a little bit. If we were to pull the sidewalk back maybe a little more, we could maybe take another 6 or 8 inches out of it. I'm going to show you a photo just to get a sense of what that looks like. Here's the photo here. The Faces building is Mr. Prescott's building. And here's his driveway. He has full access to the site. His driveway is probably between 8 and 10 feet wide, depending where you are. This is number 34. This is the applicant's building. This building is being torn down as part of the project. So this driveway will remain. And as you can see from the joints on the sidewalk in this photo, I'm proposing on my plan to start the new sidewalk here and bring it all the way to the gas station, lowering the grade a little bit. Mr. Prescott doesn't feel I'm lowering the grade enough, but that's really all I can do. Perhaps you can go back a little further here, but again, you can't lower it past this point because then you start impacting handicap accessibility to his front yard. And it's really not the obligation of the applicant to redo the sidewalk in front of his property. I mean, if we wanted to, I could have started the driveway, the sidewalk transition here and just left all that alone. I just tried to make things a little better with the plan I had. So I don't know if his letter will get read into the record, but that's,
Ben,
yes, Tom.
why don't I just jump in and finish this particular part of the conversation? With respect to that property, Ben was just on the survey that was prepared by New England Land Surveying. And the survey actually shows 2 easements up in that section of our property, including for the driveway. One of the easements references just a normal steel and P easement. But the second one is a 1924 mutual driveway easement. And that was drawn in 1924 between the owners then of number 34 and Mr. Prescott's predecessors in number 36. And that is a permanent easement. It's a mutual easement because the driveway is slightly on number 34 as well as on 36. But that's permanent. It's recorded in the land records. You'll see the reference to it up in the right-hand corner there on the survey. And that is the only permanent easement with respect to Mr. Prescott's property. So he has that right. We are not going to interfere with that. Ben's going to try to improve it a little bit, but it will remain an open access for the Prescott property, just as it's required to be pursuant to the easement. And that's all I wanted to say, Ben. I just wanted to say that it's in the record and
No, thank you, Tom. And just for the record, because I knew this was going to come up today, I went and I drove in and out of that driveway today, and he's right, it is steep. I have a full-size pickup truck. If you had a low-riding sedan, you're gonna probably hit, as he described, going by there. And it's been there forever. And again, we're not making it any worse. We're only trying to make it a little better. And I think I've gone through my presentation here. I'll be happy to answer. Oh, I do. There is one more thing. Sorry, everybody. The site is partially in the Main Street, even though it's in the CBD zone. The Main Street Historic Overlay Zone does something like this. So a portion of the site is in it, but the big building isn't in it, the little building isn't in it, and it's annotated on the plan that we also comply with the requirements, because the Historic Overlay Zone has some additional features that limit building heights and things like that. But again, we're not in it, so it's really not applicable, but that overlay zone is shown on the plans. And the reason it comes into the property like that, it had to do with old property lines when this was smaller lots that were here. So.
okay, you want to hand it off to Phil?
Yeah, I'll hand it off to Phil. Phil, just tell me what I have. Phil's drawings. So I will listen, Phil, and let you tell me what you want me to show.
Thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
So I'm Phil Clark. I'm the president of Claris Design Build. Also an architect with the firm, and our home offices are in at 53 Churchill Road, Newtown. Thanks. That's perfect right there, Ben. Actually, Ben, you have the existing drawing, the existing photo from there you go. As Ben, an attorney, said, it's 2 buildings. And they've kind of spelled out what we're doing. So I'll try and hit just like the materials we're going to be using, et cetera. But this kind of shows the existing facility, the building up front, which is circa 1960 something. And that's all precast, that facade. So we're going to be peeling that off. And then Ben, if you could move to the next slide. We're going to be replacing it with a more updated look, if you will. Both buildings will look, as you can see on the drawing, similar. We're going to mostly use on the first level applied like sandstone block, and then from there we'll be using for the body of the building will be a gray cement board, hardy siding type clapboard. And then there'll be some enhancements, some like you see the gray and black vertical ACM panels on the front, and that the red tone is actually red brick to further enhance the look. As they said, there are balconies for every unit, and those will have the aluminum white and some black aluminum railings. The windows themselves are a black tone, and some are aluminum, some are vinyl. Other than that, it's so that's the basic materials that we're proposing on the buildings. The roofs are all going to be a membrane roof, and then Ben, if you could slide over to the courtyard. As Ben alluded to, there is a courtyard in the rear building. The rear building again is 3 stories of parking, and then on top of that is 4 stories of apartments. In the center, this is getting further developed, but basically there's going to be some raised planters and some other amenities that we're working with. But basically, again, it just it allows a lot more light for all the apartments, and that's big with ownership. They wanted us to see what kind of green elements we could put into the building. So natural lighting is a big item to us. And then the private balconies, again, I'll have glass doors. So again, natural lighting. The roof is going to be designed to support a future solar panel array if in the future. We'll also run conduits to the electrical room for that. The 30 EV charging stations will also be, most of them we believe are, like Ben said, going to be located into the parking garage. And then the front building, which you see on the left here, we're basically going to save it, and it's going to save a lot of space in the landfill. So we're going to save the structure and work with what we have. So it is we've employed, and again, just the energy code these days is very strict too. So it's going to be an energy green building. I don't know if we're going for LEED certification or not, but it certainly could qualify. So that's basically the building. Again, as they said, the first floor, as you're looking at right now, the front building is office. The top 4 floors were office. We're going to convert those to apartments. And the rear building is 7 stories, 3 parking, 4 apartments. The one question they had 2 questions concerning architecture. One, as Ben addressed, we have a photometric study being produced right now, and we'll get that over to planning and zoning quickly. And then there was also another comment about, on this particular slide, maybe some further enhancements to the facade of the front building. We'll get with Jennifer's staff and try to understand what they'd like to see, and we'll do what we can to make that happen. That's pretty much the presentation.
Questions for Mr. Clark at this point, commission members, or for Mr. Dodo? Okay.
I actually have one more thing to add, Chairman, that I forgot. Phil reminded me of it.
Okay.
In Ally's letter, she asked about assigned parking. I forgot to touch on that. We will probably have assigned parking for the bank, but we'll get this to you in the next revision, Ally. Obviously, the bank parking will be here in this general area, possibly over here too. But again, that'll probably be just during bank business hours. Nights, weekends. There's no reason that anyone else can't use it. And then as far as throughout the garage, we're going to go over that. But my gut feeling is not to have too much assigned parking, especially when you have EV charging stations, because the people that use EV stations need to come and go and then leave it for somebody else. Likewise, when we have downtown parking like this, and I can speak of this because I've been parking in the Bardo garage since the day it opened, you want to be able to share parking with other businesses. In this case, it'd be the bank and the residents, and also other residents when you have different shifts. Because in the CBD zone, Parking, there, as you know, there's a slight reduction in the parking requirements downtown. And they also don't, visitor parking isn't allowed. So the sharing of parking is crucial. So with the exception of some dedicated spots for the bank and their customers during banking hours, there may be a few assigned spaces, but it's probably going to be, instead of having a space there that's empty 12 hours a day or whatever, it's nice to have the ability to share with someone that may have different hours than you. But we'll get that to you, Ally, along with the EV locations.
Thanks, Ben.
Yep.
Tom?
I think Mr. Kyokyo had a question.
Please, Bob.
Sure, two questions. I'm not sure if one is for Phil or they're both for Ben. The first one, as far as building number one, the floor plan and the size of each of the corresponding units, will they be the same layout for the efficiencies, we'll call it in building one, and the efficiencies in building two? Will they be the same layout and similar for the 1 and 2 bedrooms?
Because like Ben said, we've got some to deal with some existing columns and structure on building one. They are not going to be identical. They're more efficient in building two, but so there are some slight changes, but they're all the efficiencies are all around 500 to 600 square feet. So. But they will not be.
I've got it right here. There's 660 on building one, which is well in excess of the city's requirements. And then in building two, Phil, I'm just going to flip it because I have your slide here. That's the only reason I'm doing it.
Yeah, 500 or so.
So 660 for the efficiency on that one. The ones are 840 to 888, and the twos are 1280. That's on building one. And then on building two, I'm going to zoom in here.
I think they're a little smaller because I think the efficiencies are like 4 or something, 412 or.
Yeah, they're 412 on the rear building. The 1 bedrooms are 650 and the 2 are 959. But I mean, Phil can answer this.
Okay.
The rear building, they tend to be rectangular and square, and the front building, they're a little more irregular. Yeah, go ahead.
Got
Phil.
it.
No.
Oh, I got it. Thanks. Yeah, appreciate that. And then Ben, can you just go through the driveway issue again? Did you say that the current customers of that Faces building use the existing driveway on 30 or 34 and then park in the back? Is that what I heard you say?
Yeah, I'll show you how they do it, Bob. They come in the main driveway for 30, like this.
Yep.
They drive around. They come in here and they park here.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, do some go down this way? Probably. But I would say the bulk go out the back and come through. But as Tom was saying, there's no easement to make that loop. It's just something that's been done for years.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be able to be done with the new site plan, the way we have things situated.
Yep. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next would be Joe Balskus to give the traffic report.
Tom, do you want me to show Abigail's plan or you want to wait?
We can wait.
Okay. Just for everyone here, it is in the package if you want to look at it. But other than there are a lot of plants, I'm not going to make that presentation for Abigail. Here it is. It's in your package. She'll make that presentation next time.
Thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben, can you show your site plan real quick? I do want to just, I'll hit that driveway issue real quick before I start my presentation. I do have a presentation prepared as well. So the issue regarding straightening that driveway out, this being a right turnout driveway, the DOT is going to want it to be angled as much as possible. And I like this layout Ben has. I understand where the comment's coming from, but I think having this maneuver it forces you to go left, then go right, and it encourages that right turn out. If you're going straight out, then they'll be more likely to try and turn left out and, you know, go left and go north on Main Street. So I think if as long as a vehicle can make the maneuver, I think it's a good layout that Ben's got there, and I think it'll work well in terms of DOT's eyes as well. We have to go there at some point. So, all right. So for the record, my name is Joe Balskis, traffic engineer for VHB, professional engineer. Let me share my screen, and I have a little presentation prepared. Let me do this. Let me go screen 2, right? Screen 2. All right, and let me do this. There you go. Can you see the presentation slide now?
Yes.
Okay. So a little agenda I prepared for the project: existing conditions, traffic generation, some recommendations or mitigation, I could say, as part of our conclusions, and then obviously any questions or answers I may provide. This is a picture of the site itself. You see here on the right hand side. This is from March of this year. So we prepared the traffic impact and access study, as you've seen. It's been submitted. As part of that is the existing conditions I talked about. Main Street, as we know, is Route 53, State Highway. We only have one study intersection, and I'll explain why we have that, which is the basic site driveway or driveways that we have. It's unsignalized, stop sign control. We do know, obviously, Main Street, Route 53 is a busy corridor. It's a connection between Bethel and downtown and 84. We know that. And in this section of the site, it's generally flat. In terms of profile, there's a slight curvature as you're going north to downtown. We know it's 25 mile an hour posted speeds, and we know there's ample sight lines. Let's see if this works. Does this work? Here we go. Okay. Functionally, from a classification standpoint, from DOT, it's a minor urban arterial. You see in green. You see my cursor here. It's in green right here. And by DOT, so it's not a collector. Arterial is an important roadway. North of the site, as you go downtown, up here, my cursor, it becomes a more significant road, other principal arterial. But in front of the site itself, it's classified by DOT as an urban arterial. I'm trying to move my. Here you go. This guy. Just real quick on the sight lines, we looked at the sight lines. There's ample sight distances looking left and looking right on Main Street from the existing site driveway, and obviously the proposed driveway itself will also have good sight lines. Both the right turn out as well as the full access drive will have very good sight lines leaving the site. And just a little diagram. We also have DOT. They gave us a functional classification. They also have some traffic counts. Not necessarily the best traffic counts are from 2013 that's available. But that's what we have to work with, and as well as our own counts. And back in 2013, 10 years ago, in 2010, a count just north of South Street to the south here, 900 cars in the morning, 1,200 cars in the afternoon in both directions. So we look at that, and then we look at how does that compare to our own traffic counts. We did some traffic counts out there in December last year, 5 months ago already now, and a little bit lower, as you can see it from 2013. We had 960 and 1,200. We're showing 700 and 960 in the afternoon. So a little difference in counts. Don't know if that's related to the pandemic, work from home, but certainly, we're looking at 10 years of traffic data difference that we're trying to compare it to. So it's a little difficult to do that, but we did the traffic counts out there at the site driveway during the peak hours, and they're a little less, but this is what we have to work with because the DOT counts are obviously very old. We also look at the crashes in the area of the site. And then you've heard this before, we use the Yukon Crash Repository. We looked at 3 years before the pandemic. We didn't look at the pandemic because we know there's been some issues with data in the pandemic and some unusual patterns. So we looked at the last 3 years before the pandemic and didn't see any major. You can see here on the table here, this is from the report itself. We had 9 crashes in the area of the site drive. 7 of them are property damage only, fender benders, a couple of injury, non-fatal. kind of a mixture of rear ends, five rear ends. We didn't look at and see exactly where they were in terms of where they turned into this driveway or across the street, but didn't see a lot of crashes that indicate there's an issue out here. There's just some pictures looking south from the site. See there, it's very straight, wide shoulders, wide lane. Actually, there's a mid-block crossing down by the gas station, and then to the north again. Wide shoulders, one lane each direction. There's a price right across the street. So next is traffic generation. What do we generate for traffic? And this is where it gets interesting on the project. Looking at the existing use, or proposed residential, using ITE. You've heard that before. Many applications. It's obviously approved by the Office of State Traffic Administration. From many land uses. But the end result is we actually have reduction in traffic from this project, and that's what I want to show you. This is in the traffic study. So we try to be clear in this and kind of outlining what we have for proposed uses. We obviously have a couple hundred units of proposed residential uses. We have the bank. We're saying proposed that's going to be our proposed condition, and then we're subtracting the office space. 55,000 square feet. Substantial office space where they can generate. As well as the existing bank, just to give us some, an equal proposed and existing. And you see here, like in the morning, we have seventy less trips entering because it's not an office. In the afternoon, we have 50 more exiting. I'm sorry, and I'm sorry, in the morning, we have 70 less entering and 50 more exiting because of residential leaving to go to work if they're not working from home. So we have a net change of about 20. And then in the afternoon, a similar number. We have more vehicles entering in the afternoon, coming home. All the units coming home, and then no one's really leaving where the office was leaving. So that's where we see a big difference in numbers. So we're looking at here as a when you compare the existing uses, what they generate versus proposed use, a net reduction in traffic volume is what we have here. So that's why we focus this on just the site itself, the site drive itself, because there's no increase in traffic, there's a reduction in traffic. But we still did the normal analysis that we go through in terms of our traffic study. We looked at distribution of traffic that's coming for the residential. That's where they're coming from, and the bank, most of it to the north. All right, we didn't subtract out the distribution for the office, but this is just what's coming for the residential as well as for the bank. These are some of our build traffic volumes that we're showing here. Obviously, there's traffic being generated, but it's less traffic than would be generated with the office and the bank. So this is a reduction in the volumes there. So we did capacity analysis at the site driveway itself. You've heard this before for the morning, afternoon, peak hour. Obviously, there's going to be a change. There's going to be a betterment, if you will, for the analysis. So there's no reductions in level service. There's some increase in delays because we have some differences in when vehicles are leaving. And as in terms of the morning and the afternoon, versus the afternoon. And I'll show that to you. So some very minor change, but I'll show it to you with the tables. But no reductions in level served, meaning no, A to F, as we know, is the qualitative measure of level service and operations. No reduction. So the table we have here, we're showing here. This is for the main sector, and I'll be clear. We did not evaluate the right turnout that had been shown, and that's obviously not going to be an issue. We look at the main driveway itself and the traffic from that. And this table, right out of the report, you can see leaving the driveway in the morning peak hour. You can just go across the whole table of no build and build. You count in 2022 or volume of capacity or delays or level service. No real change in those numbers across the board from no build to build. And then in the afternoon, we see a little difference because in the afternoon, the banks are leaving, the bank and the office, but most of the office traffic is leaving in the afternoon. And that's where you had some level of service forecasted issues there before, but we're improving that because we have less traffic leaving in the afternoon. So, and the net effect of the site driveway is that it'll operate better with the project because there's less traffic leaving the site in the afternoon. So that gives you a clear indication of what's happening here. So the redevelopment will result in reduced traffic generation, as I mentioned. We have great sight lines. Didn't really see any patterns for the crash data. The site driveway operates very good level of service. We don't see Main Street flow operations being maintained, no impact. We didn't see any changes to the northbound and southbound flow on Main Street. It's free flowing. So, but if there was a lot of traffic turn left into the site, that could back up Main Street. But we didn't see that with the analysis itself. So that's why our conclusion is it will not have a significant impact on traffic operations, primarily due to reduced traffic from the project. So that's the presentation. I'll be glad to take any questions, Mr. Chair.
Questions for Joe at this time? I can't see everybody, so if you have a question, just feel free to shout it out.
Mr. Chairman, it's Bob. I have a question.
Go ahead.
Joe, can you go back to table 4, the slide you had in there? Yep. Oh. So can you just explain a couple of the items there for me? In the movement, the second, is it the third column from the left?
I could do it about. Let me see. So this is the location of the intersection. This is a peak hour. This is the movement, meaning at the intersection. Are you going eastbound, leaving the site? Are you northbound on Main Street? Or southbound on Main Street? Left or right out of the site drive? Left and through for northbound, through and right for southbound. This is our sorry. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. And then these are our calculations that we do. Our volume to capacity. What's the actual volume intersection versus the capacity intersection? There's a factor. And one, obviously, when you're at 1, you're at capacity. Your delays, these are seconds per vehicle that they're being calculated by the software. Level of service, that's based on your delays. That's A being the best, F being the worst, as you know. And then this is Q95. That's our queuing. That's the length of your queuing on that approach. So on the eastbound approach in the morning, we had, in the morning existing, you have a bank and an office, so no one's really leaving. So you have like 10 feet of queue, 1.5 cars.
Yep.
And in the morning with the development, we're going to see, at least 1 car queuing up. All right. The delays are a little, a couple seconds difference, not major change. Level service stays the same. So yeah, there may be 1 car waiting. It's increased in the morning a little bit, leaving the site. In the afternoon, as I was saying before, the opposite is true. The afternoon, we were showing that you could have a 4 or 5 car queue waiting to leave in the afternoon, where it was this project, maybe 2 car queue as you'll have there. So that's going to be our reduction in the queuing, again, due to you're losing all the office traffic that's leaving, would be leaving the site. Now you have traffic coming in for the residential uses that are on the site. So that's where you see the differences.
Yep. Okay. And then, so if you look at the number of cars, I guess, or vehicles in the 2024 build conditions, why are there on Main Street, I guess, the 424 and the 364, why is there less than the current conditions? Is that reflective of there's not an office building there anymore? Is that what that means?
Correct. Yes. This is your demand volume. This isn't the option. This is your demand. This is demand volume. This is part of the calculation, demand volume. So that's those calculations from. And yes, it's based upon the build condition adding the traffic into the traffic model from the project.
Okay. All right. And so that doesn't include like the existing counts that you did. This is just based on based on the ITE stuff.
No, this includes the counts as well as the trip generation that we have. These volumes. Let me do this. Let me show you this here. Here are the volumes from our traffic volumes, our build volumes. These are the actual volumes themselves that we're using for our volume figures. The table provides a software demand calculation for the volume. These are the actual volumes that we're showing at the site drive. How many are turning? There's the morning, 14 turning left in the morning. Now it's going to be 32. In the afternoon, it's 32 turning in. Okay, we can compare that to the existing, and that's where we see the differences. And then again, 21 in the morning, 47 in the afternoon. Everyone's coming back home after working. And these are your through volumes on Main Street in the morning and afternoon, and again in the morning and the afternoon. Those are your through volumes.
Got it.
Okay.
Yep. Okay, and then is the office building occupied and people in there working right now, or is it unoccupied? Do you know?
So we projected the office being fully occupied. So our numbers that we're using here in our analysis was projecting the office is fully occupied.
Yep, but in reality right now, is it occupied or it is not? Occupied?
I don't think it is fully occupied. I thought when we did the analysis, it was not. Ben, anyone can help me on that? We projected being fully occupied. I don't know if it is.
I don't think it is. I know there's a lot of lawyers' offices in there right now. Penny Payne is in there. I think Kramer Anderson is in there. A few.
Yeah.
I don't, what?
Okay, so it's somewhat occupied right
Yeah,
now.
it's not vacant. We could get you that answer, Bob. I'd have to get that from our client, but every time I go in there, there are people in that building.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah,
is it 100% occupied? I don't think it is based on, the cars I see out there. We've also come through a strange 3 years here as well.
Yeah, we were being conservative and assuming it's fully leased and occupied and using the ITE numbers. So that way we have a conservative, analysis of what can be there. So
Yeah,
versus-
and
versus-
the reason why I was going there is that because in effect, while if it were fully occupied, we'd be having less traffic, but in reality, since it's not, we're actually going to maybe have a little bit more traffic given the occupancy. But I understand what it is, and I understand, so I'm okay with that. And just for the record, I used to work in that building back in 1984, so I'm pretty familiar with it. So I'm all set. Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Commission members, any other questions for Joe or at this time, Mr. Balskis or anything else, commission members? I don't see any right now. Back to you, Tom. I'm sorry, Ben.
I just have one more thing that, Joe, can you explain, my plan shows the vehicle trip estimate that's required by the city when we take the city's trip multiplier?
You want to show it? You have it there?
Yeah, yes. And it does show an increase, but that's total trips of the day, and you're talking about peak hour.
Yeah, yes,
So
yes.
let me share my screen and I'll let Joe talk about that, because sometimes the audience, looks at one number and they hear another number, and I just want to be very clear that what Joe's talking about versus what I had to put on my plan.
Yes. Yeah, so the traffic impact study is based upon peak hour. We don't do a daily traffic analysis. We may do a comparison, but for purposes of the traffic analysis, we look at the peak hour. So the traffic being generated is during the morning peak hour and the afternoon peak hours. That's what our analysis is based upon. Ben's numbers probably show the city's daily traffic generation. That's what you're referring to, Ben, right? You want to zoom in there?
Let me get to it. Hold on. Right in the bottom left, Joe.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Basically, it says proposed trip 1739, total daily, current 1152. But
All right, so you're showing 1240 trips for the apartments, and then a bank is showing 500.
yes,
And then using the city's trip calculator, you're saying there's less. So from a daily standpoint, using the city's calculation, this is city. This is not IT. I don't have the ITE daily calculation, but using the city's calculation, you're saying that we're increasing the daily trips based on the city's calculation.
yes.
Okay, I have to look at ITE, and so next time I can give you a ITE comparison, but the city's calculation does show, and I know the city's calculation has been very conservative on land use. So I will have a daily calculation. We have peak hour, but I'll provide a daily calculation to see if it's close to what the city's saying.
Thank you, Joe. And I'm just saying this because I have to show one thing and Joe has to do another one
Yeah.
in his presentation.
Yeah, and for the record, the city's vehicle trip estimate calculation that they have, doing dozens of applications in the city, most of the time it's higher than what we're seeing for ITE. And let me be clear also too, with ITE, we're also seeing that ITEs, they're doing some updates to the trip generation manual. We know work from home is vastly affecting some of these things. So these numbers that we're using are actually very conservative in terms of trip generation. So, because the work from home has been happening.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Ben and Joe. Tom?
If there's no other questions,
Welcome.
that's the end of our presentation for this evening. Obviously, we have some further items to submit to the commission, so the hearing should not be closed tonight. Moved over to May 3rd.
Sure. Okay, commission members, any other questions for the applicant at this time? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application?
Mr. Chairman,
Looks like Mr. Perkins. Dwayne, go ahead.
I'm not really here to speak for or against, but I'd
Okay.
just like to make some statements, ask a couple of questions.
Yes, you may, and we'll have the applicant address them.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, it's always a pleasure to see you, commissioners. Attorney Beecher, thanks for the summary of the proposed plans that you all are putting forth. Phil, I didn't realize you were on the call. Hey, Phil. Let me just start off by saying I'd like to thank the work of the EIC along with Engineer Dodo to help advocate and secure a maintenance schedule, a plan that would help maintain the sediment, control some of the erosion, protecting people's properties and the wetlands. I'll get right to one of my other general comments concerning the traffic generation, traffic growth. It always amazes me that we can put forth these projects that have increased residential capacity, increased populations, increased vehicles, and the impact actually goes down. So we have trips, we break it down into morning and evening, entering 70, exiting 50 for a reduction of 20 vehicles, and evening peak 32 with a minus 52 exiting for another reduction of 20%. I think I may have cracked the code though. And this is through the chair, would be possibly to the traffic engineer. It seems like these numbers are based on the current use and not necessarily the proposed use, because you were looking at least 208 units. Most people there are going to have vehicles. I mean, even if you just took away 20% of the number of vehicles with that 208 people, you're still up near 166, 167 vehicles. So I just don't understand how these numbers that are presented in the report actually coincide with what will actually be happening with the total number of potential vehicles that would be in that space. So that's one, Mr. Chairman. Another one, I do understand that they're changing the entrance by removing that building to the north side of the property. It still seems like the fire truck or safety vehicle that goes in there would need to do some kind of fancy K-turn in order to get back out of that same exit, because I don't think they can get or fit through that side of the bank over there. So that's just a question I may have also through whomever can answer that type of question. One of the other things that was not mentioned, and I did not see it in the renditions, was a concern for fencing or privacy. So I want to understand how the petitioners will erect some type of fencing or privacy noise barriers, more so privacy. And if possible, I'm sure they're in the plans already, I would just like to know the height. I guess they typically use ground level, the height of the buildings toward the rear that include the 3 levels of parking and the 4 levels of apartments. What would be that total height? And also what would be the total height of the existing structure? I'm not sure if they're going to go up more vertical, but there was some talk about installing solar panels on top of the roofs. Mr. Chairman, I think for now, those are all the questions that I have.
Thanks, Dwayne.
Joe, you want to handle the first question about how does traffic counts go down when you've got 208 units of residential?
Let me, if I may, let me just first speak to Dwayne. No, that I know exactly what you're saying, Dwayne. Here we have all these new apartments, and hey, presto, less traffic. I got that. I understand what you're saying, and I think that what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to drill down on that, and we're going to reconcile the traffic report presented by Mr. Bauskas with just what we all know from driving up and down Main Street. And I think that, and I'll let Joe speak for himself, but when he comes up with his counts, he goes to the Institute of Traffic Engineers, ITE. That's their Bible. Okay, so that's where they get their data. It's credible data for traffic. So a 55,000 square foot office generates blank in the ITE manual, I guess. So those are the figures he's using. But then somebody asked, okay, but if the whole building is vacant, and I drive by it every day, there never seems to be any traffic there. And we know those apartments aren't going to be vacant. So I think I got your point. And I just wanted you to know I got it. And we're going to be looking at that. And with that said, I guess since that was Dwayne's first question, Joe or Tom, I'll let you respond to it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may as well, Vera is also working on a report to give to the commission. So we'll have that for our next meeting as well.
Okay, just to repeat back what Ally just said, we don't even have the report yet from our own traffic engineer, or there'll be more coming from him. So I just wanted to get that on the record as well. So
I was just going to say to start, it wouldn't be an appropriate traffic report if we were doing a traffic report for, let's say, a building that's only 25% occupied, because we don't know that 6 months from now, that building wouldn't be 100% occupied. So a proper report gives you what the building is designed to hold, to do, the uses. Yeah, sure. Maybe right now there's a little bit of a vacancy rate at this particular building. Other buildings have high vacancy rates. But for Joe to do his job, as my understanding of it, is that he has to take into consideration what the uses are at the current, what the uses could be, the full use of that property. Joe?
Fair enough. Joe, before I go to Joe, I think Mr. Chiocchio wanted to jump in here too. So we'll go to Bob Chiocchio, then Joe, you'll get your chance.
Yeah, I'll leave it to Joe, but that wasn't really what Dwayne was asking. He's really referencing 62 vehicles in the morning when there's 208 units there. How could that, not all the cars aren't coming out? But I think Joel answered, but it's really the peak hour versus the whole day, the whole morning kind of thing. Go ahead, Joe. You're the traffic guy.
Correct.
Thank you. Again, for the record, Joe Bauskas, professional engineer. So the councilman, you asked a classic question that's been asked for years, for my 34 years of doing this, is that you hear, well, you got 200 units and you show me 60 cars leaving. And it's a great question, but the reality is that you sit outside a subdivision, an apartment building, if you sit there for a couple hours, an hour, and you watch the traffic that leaves or enters, everyone doesn't leave at the same time. The entire complex does not exit or enter during that 1 hour. That's a fact. That's irrefutable. All the traffic from this apartment complex is not going to come or leave in 1 hour all at the same time. That is, you watch any parking garage, even a parking garage, commercial, residential. Every parking garage I design, it's 40% of the spaces is the peak hour, because people leave before the peak, really the peak hour. Let's be clear. There's traffic being generated before that peak hour, traffic being generated after the peak hour. But we look at the peak because that's where we're looking at the potential highest impact. So the numbers you see in the table that you're referencing, the 80 trips being by proposed residential, that is based on ITE, as Chairman Finelli mentioned. But let me be clear. The state of Connecticut, the Office of State Traffic Administration tells us to use these numbers. So these are not numbers that I'm saying these. I found these numbers somewhere. I'm using these numbers. I'm obviously a professional engineer. I'm licensed professional engineer, state of Connecticut, certified nationally as a professional traffic operation engineer. We are using the data that is proven, data that's legally required to be used in a court of law. And if I'm testifying to a judge, the judge will say that is acceptable. But the bottom line here again is that not everyone leaves all at the same time over an hour. In any development, any complex, residential, even office, the peak hour is the peak, but there's still traffic being generated before the peak and after the peak. Now, is there 200 cars being generated? I'll tell you, no, there's not. Even over the several peaks, you won't see 200 cars. You will not see that, especially now, work from home. So that's the difference between what people see as 200 units or 400 parking spaces somewhere. Why is there 400 cars? That's because not everyone leaves in that peak hour. Now, if I spread it out, if I go, of course, like an office building, I go every hour. And I've done this for some projects. Give me the generation every hour. I can get to a number possibly close to 200, maybe, but we don't do every hour over the course of the day because we don't need to. We're looking at the peak hour, number one. Number two, the issue of is it occupied office or not? I can tell you, if the office was occupied right now, we did an analysis of what's actually there today and what we're generating. There's still the volumes that we're generating are very low. We're talking about this is a low generation of traffic, and we're looking at 80 trips being generated in the morning, afternoon. That's literally more than 1 car per minute. If you think about it, and that's 1 car. That's 18 entering in the morning and 62 leaving in the morning. So 1 car is leaving per minute. So over that course, so not a lot of traffic. When you look at, you've got 900 cars on Main Street. So the impact is negligible, but it's based on solid data. It's based on real data. It's based on court of law data. It's based on state data, the trip generation that we're showing here. And my professional engineer stamp is on that, would be on that as needed. So it is, I understand why the confusion, but the reality is if you sit outside an apartment building, apartment complex, or even in your own subdivision, 10 lot subdivision, you'll see traffic generated before and after the peak hour as well as during the peak hour. I hope that helps and answer the concern.
I think it does, but I just want to make sure, Councilman Perkins brought up a couple of other issues as well. I don't know if hopefully the applicant was taking notes. So if anyone wants to respond to those, for privacy, height of the building, etc. Tom, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ben, do you want to talk about the height of the buildings and fence?
Sure. I will start at the height of the building. The first building is 5 stories. I don't have a height measurement, but I'm thinking it's 55 to 60 feet, Phil. Yeah, right around there, and that's going to remain unchanged. I'll let Phil answer if solar panels go. They're usually flat on the roof anyway, and don't affect that.
And they'd be the back building, which is 75 feet tall.
Yeah, no, the back building is technically 71 feet according to the regs because the site is sloped.
Gotcha.
So yes, in the front it's about 75, but in the back it's almost 1 story. The parking garage is almost underground there. So
gotcha.
According to the zoning regs, it's a little over 71 feet. That's on the zoning table. 75 feet is permitted in the CCBD zone, the portion we're in. We're also allowed in this zone to have 0 setbacks. And the building itself, the bulk of the building is at about 15 feet from the property line. The staircases are about 5 or 6 feet where the staircases get close. But again, at the staircases, those are just staircases. There's not going to be people living in them, looking out windows or anything like that. And then the fencing, we were proposing just to keep the fencing like it is now. Right now, there's chain link fencing that runs around the property. There's some areas that it goes into the property and off the property. We're just proposing to relocate it back to the property line. The building itself in the back, basically the parking garage itself gives you a lot of privacy if you were looking at the elevations there, because it's really not a dead wall, but it's a wall with right, Phil, louvers and vents to allow air. I'll let Phil talk about what that wall is going to look like. Because Phil, Councilman Perkins' development is the one immediately to the south, the Enclave, their townhome units there. But the south wall and the north wall are going to look identical.
Correct. If there's, is there a concern about the aesthetics of it, or?
No, I think Councilman Perkins was, concerned about fencing and noise, but this site is really not going to generate any noise. Everyone that's going to be living is well above. But we did not propose privacy fencing, Chairman. We just proposed the chain link that's there today.
Thank you.
Yes.
Then there was one other question. And
Oh,
for
the turn. Yes.
Yeah, the fire marshal's office already reviewed the site and issued their report that they're not going to have any issues accessing the site for their apparatus. But Ben, you want to just?
Yeah, I'll just share the screen again if everyone doesn't mind. So doesn't like the color. So as I mentioned, the main aisle width here is going to be 30 feet. Compared to what you have, a real sharp turn where emergency vehicles have to come in right now is a vast improvement. The fire marshal was happy to see that. And the other thing we did, this rear aisle here is even wider. It's 37 feet. So an emergency vehicle will be able to turn around like this. And if they had to, they could even come, I don't see that why they would, but they could even do a maneuver like this. They currently do not go out this way because this bypass is really tight. Right now, the emergency vehicles, an ambulance can go out that way, but a fire truck actually turns around and goes out the in way. So they were pleased to see this. And again, just to get a sense, look how wide this rear aisle is here at 37 feet. And then it's, let's see, here's Main Street between the white stripes, and here's Main Street curb to curb. It's very wide back there, and it was done intentionally.
Great. Thanks, Ben.
You're welcome.
I think we answered, you can ask him, but I think we answered Mr. Perkins' questions.
You did, but Mr. Chairman, can I have a follow-up? I got a couple more. Sorry. Mr. Beecher mentioned at the outset of the presentation about statutorily affordable housing. Could we just get a definition on that?
Yeah.
There was another thing. The pedestrian crossing is, I believe I read in that report, 150 feet to the south of this property. Have there been plans to address the crossing? Because sometimes with what could be considered a heavily traveled area, sometimes there are blinking lights put up so that they can alert drivers to the flow of traffic across the roadway. Would that be a part of this consideration?
Councilman, we're not proposing anything at this time, but I'll let Joe touch base. Joe mentioned we're gonna have to go to the DOT for an OSTA application. I'll hand it over to Joe with respect to that, because that's probably when something like that would come up. And it's also not in front of our site. It is a distance to the south.
Yeah, there is a, what we call a again, for record, Joe Balskis, professional engineer, VHP, prepared the traffic impact study. So to the south, there is a mid-block crossing that it was put in, I don't know how many years ago. I didn't go back and look at the aerial mapping. We were not planning on addressing that. We didn't see a need to, and frankly, we don't want to do mid-block crossings. Those are crossings we try to avoid. Mid-block crossing wherever possible. So we didn't see a need for that. But Ben said it has to go through the Office of State Traffic Administration for an overall permit for the size of the project. And they may ask a question on that. They could mandate that. They could require that it be upgraded or even moved. I don't see it happening, but that's certainly something that will be reviewed by the Office of State Traffic Administration as part of the application for the project. And that application happens after city approval. And the city's local traffic authority does have a voice in that process, but at this time we didn't see a need to provide a mid-block. We try and stay away from mid-block crossings as engineers and professionals. We try to avoid those because when the mid-block crossing on Main Street with that volume you have there, you're looking at doing not just flashing beacons. Maybe doing some more than just that. Maybe making a little bump outs to make it a little narrower. So it gets a little more involved. But we did not see a need for that at this point in time. But again, the Office of State Traffic Administration may ask us to look at that.
Mr. Chairman, if I can jump in really quick to address the mid-block crossing. Vera had some preliminary comments that we discussed today before the commission meeting, and he is going to be looking for improvements at the crosswalk. So that will be all in his report detailed as well.
Thanks, Ally. Thanks for that. Okay. Moving on.
Just the thing on, I think it was statutorily affordable housing. What does that definition refer to through the chair?
I'm referring to the statute, which is 8-30G of the Connecticut General Statutes, and what it references is housing that is deed restricted for a period of 40 years and can only be either rented or sold to people who qualify for the affordable housing.
Okay, I'll have to look that up. But thank you, Mr. Attorney Beecher.
You're
No
welcome.
problem. All good, Dwayne. Thank you. Let's see, I think I was calling the opposition. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Anyone
Yes,
wishing-
Mr. Chair. We have to read the letter from the adjacent
Yeah,
property owner.
Gonna get to that. That's the last thing we're gonna do before we ask for a motion to continue. So Ally has, somebody alluded earlier to a letter we received, and Ally is gonna read that into the record at this time. Go ahead, Ally.
Thank you. So this letter is from William Prescott, owner of 36 Main. To whom it may concern, I bought 36 Main in 1987. At that time, Nolan gave me oral permission to use bank entrance to get to my parking lot 36 years ago. Now he wants to block entrances both in the back of my parking lot and prevent me from using his new parking lot on the side, leaving the sorry, it's handwritten, so it's a little challenging to read.
No problem.
Leaving the right-of-way driveway lot that is very steep. I have 2 full-size trucks. Taking a little bit of the slope isn't going to make a difference. There are also 3 pipes under the driveway, a gas pipe, a water pipe, and a sewer pipe. I get my water through a pipe coming to the house, through a pipe coming to a crawl space at a corner of the house, adjacent to the driveway, which is closer to the surface, that if it comes to a full-size basement. A better solution is, instead of fencing off the entire back boundary, is to leave a small opening in the fence to allow me entrance in the fence to allow me access to my parking lot, or discuss any other better solutions. Signed, William Prescott.
Great, Ally. Thank you for that.
Thanks.
I'll ask the applicant if they want to respond to that at this time, or would you prefer, since we have to keep the public hearing open anyway, to postpone that till the next meeting?
Yeah, we've addressed it already this evening, so I don't think there's anything further to say, but.
Okay. I just wanted to give you the opportunity, that's all.
Yeah,
I don't
okay.
have anything, I don't have anything else to add to that, Chairman. That was the letter I was referring to
Gotcha.
during my presentation.
Okay, I've called the opposition. We've heard the presentation. Commission members, unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion to continue until our next meeting.
I'll make that motion to continue to the next meeting.
Motion made. Do I hear? Motion made and seconded to continue this public hearing until our next meeting. Any further comments? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Who seconded? Who
Kevin,
seconded?
Yes.
Oh.
Opposed? Okay, the motion to continue is approved. It's now 9:17. Let's take 5 minutes. Let's reconvene at 9:22. Privileged motion. Thank you.
thanks.
We all back and accounted for? I think we're all back. Oh, no, not yet, not quite yet.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
Mr. Salvain has rejoined us. I don't know if you can see him or not.
yes, I can. There he
Okay.
is.
There he is.
Oh, it was a lovely 2-hour nap. Thanks, everybody.
I have that effect on people, Perry.
All right.
Riveting, riveting.
Okay, we're gonna move right to our continuation of public hearing agenda. Item 1. Lackman Enterprises LLC, property owner NSK Petroleum Wholesale Inc., prospective purchaser, application for special exception revised site plan approval for automobile service station and convenience market, section 3E9 and 5A2B, and trip generation in excess of 500 vehicle trips per day, section 3E2 in the CG20 zone, 32 Germantown Road, J11362, special exception number 791. An updated departmental report was submitted. And at this time, I will ask if there's anyone wishing to speak in favor of this application. I guess we're back to Attorney Peacher.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you all know, I represent NSK Petroleum Wholesale, Inc. And with me on this application tonight are Dennis Berbikis, our project engineer, and Mr. Balskas is also our traffic engineer on this particular application. When we left off at the last hearing, we had some outstanding items and some comments to consider. First, we have provided a certification from Bob Bennison from New England Land Surveying that no facilities such as churches and schools are within 500 feet of this particular site in compliance with section 3E9A of the regulations. Second, with respect to lighting, a lot of the lighting will be the existing lighting on the site, but however, our lighting consultant is still working on the photometric plan. So we should be able to have that and be able to forward it to Jennifer and Ally next week. As suggested in the staff report, we also asked our architect to make some revisions to the building. And Joanne, if you could let me share the screen, please. So can you see this one?
Yes.
Yes,
So
we got
this is the existing building. I just wanted to take a quick look at the, the right half, just to get a feel for what the existing building is. And then here's the proposed revisions for the building that the architect did. He moved the front doors to the middle, and he added a roof overhang with false columns. He changed the existing soffit around the building to have siding and trim. He changed the appearance of the side elevations by adding siding and trim and decorative panels. And also, as requested, he has noted, although it's hard to read on the screen like we're looking at it, but on there, he has noted the finished materials that the enhancements would be made of. And he may be a little biased, but he said, we strongly believe that making these revisions, the look of the existing building has improved tremendously. Just stop sharing. The handicapped parking has also been moved as suggested by the building department, and Dinus will go through that in a second. As a result of our discussion that we had with the commissioners last hearing, I spoke with Dinus and Jen and Joe Balskas after that particular meeting. And we also subsequently received a second report from the city traffic engineer. And in that second report, the city traffic engineer recommended that the northerly driveway closest to the firehouse be a one-way in, and that the southerly driveway now be a one-way out only. We've had a few renditions. We had our own. We had the first rendition from the city traffic engineer. We've had a few renditions. This one's one way in on the north side, one way out on the south driveway. And in talking with Joe Valskis, he agrees that for this site, that's preferable, and we're okay with that. And have adjusted our plans accordingly, which Dinas will show you in a minute as well. This change will mean that all cars at the pumps will face south. This solves the question that was raised by Ms. Hofstetter at the last meeting, asking, how does traffic facing north at the pumps get out if all 8 pumps are occupied? Now everybody's going to be facing the same way, so they're not going to have that particular issue. This is also a good time for me to correct something I said at the last hearing. I said, based on my site visit, that I thought there was room for 2 vehicles to get through between the outer pump location and the grass median closest to the road, the sidewalk. But once we put the gas pumps back and the curbing that you have in front of the gas pumps, it's going to be a little tight for vehicles to get through, for 2 vehicles to squeeze through on that particular side of things. However, there is potential room for 2 vehicles between the building and the first set of pumps, because that area is 15 feet wide, and there's also 20 feet between the 2 sets of gas pumps. And bear in mind that the average car is 6 to 6.5 feet wide. So there's some room, but you know, back to what we're originally saying, with this driveway configuration, most everybody's going to be facing south. So you're going to have less of an opportunity for some sort of a logjam. In addition to lessen congestion or potential congestion up in that northeast corner of the site near the driveway and the firehouse boundary, we've eliminated a parking space up there. We've made the landscaped island a little larger and to give a little more room. And Dinas has essentially pushed everything back towards the rear of the property, including the dumpster area. Lastly, from my standpoint, in the latest city traffic engineer report that we received last week, he also now suggests significant and expensive upgrades by putting in a crosswalk and upgrading the traffic signal video detection. I discussed this new change with Jen, and we're going to try to schedule a meeting of Joe and myself and Jen and the city traffic engineer to see if we can discuss that and hopefully resolve any questions by the next meeting. But Dinas, why don't you take over with the proposed plan?
Sure. Good evening. For the record, Dinas Verbickas, professional engineer with Artel Engineering Group here on behalf of the applicant. If I may, I'd like to share my screen so I can show the latest and greatest on the site plan modifications that we have prepared. All right, has that popped up for everyone?
Yes.
Good, popped up for me. So I'll cut right to the chase. Get to the site. Oops. Finger scrolling faster than anything here. Let me zoom less in on the site plan, and we'll look right at the modifications that we have thus made to our plan to address comments from the traffic engineer as well as from staff, though minor comments at this point. First and foremost, I'll point to our northern entryway, and what we've proposed here is to keep that entryway as is, but put in directional arrows indicating that vehicles are to come in only. And we've set our parking back about 25 feet now from the front property line, a bit further than what it was as it exists and as we had initially proposed it. And in doing that, by pushing this back, in order to not lose too many parking spaces, we also pushed back the rest of the parking a little further back on the site or to the west on the site. And we pushed our proposed trash enclosure about 3 feet further to the west to provide a bit of room, backup and turnaround room for vehicles that would be parking closest to the trash enclosure. As requested by the department, we moved the handicap parking to the north side of the building in this location here. We originally had the handicap parking here directly across from a handicap ramp that would lead to the front and to the side doors. We initially left or proposed our handicap parking in the south portion of the site because the primary entrance was going to be from the side of the store. But now, as the front doors have been moved to the front and center of the building, we have now relocated the handicap parking to the north side. And the handicap access here along the edge of the proposed sidewalk. The asphalt will be flush with the sidewalk, providing for easy access to the front doors. We chose to leave the ramping, though, at the south end of the building or south corners of the building, to provide access throughout the site for those who choose to use it. We have also added in a loading space, and the loading space is located in this a 30.4 foot wide driveway. And granted, it takes up a little bit of drive aisle and or may interfere with some of the parking. However, including the parking spaces at the dispensers, even if there were a truck parked here, we would have an excess of 2 additional parking spaces than what is required for the use. So even though it may conflict for a moment, which we don't think it ever will, but on the off chance that there is a delivery, plenty of parking on site to accommodate all that visit. And we hope those spaces will be full. We have reached out to our lighting consultant, having gone out to the site at night. This portion of the site, the south portion, is slightly illuminated from spillover from the strip mall that's located to our south. The north side of the parking lot is completely dark. So we've asked our lighting design consultant to look into illuminating specifically the north side as well as the south side. The canopy lighting is currently in place, but the lighting consultant will look to replace those lights with LED lights, as would be on the entire site. So the entire site will be illuminated as is required. Our landscape architect is working on updating the drawings to incorporate this change on landscaping in the northern end as well as in the southern end of the site. And lastly, with our site plan, the modification that we made here is we've added a stop bar across the entire throat of the southern driveway. We've put in stop signs and do not enter signs on both sides of the driveway. And we're proposing right turn and left turn arrows basically at the center line of the driveway, indicating which lane you should choose to turn in which direction. And that's about it. Oh, and sorry, one other thing is we added in the slopes or approximate slopes of all the areas, including the sidewalk not being in excess of 2% cross slope. And we again indicated all the slopes on the parking area. On our grading utility plan, the only modification that we made here was, oops, come on. This is scrolling slowly. Sorry, folks. Here we go. So what we've done with the grading utility plan, no changes to the utilities, but we have added in spot grades in all critical points so that when a contractor is on site, he or she may aim towards the correct elevations, not only in the parking areas, but also at the dispenser islands, the tank mat, and all points on site, including the entry doors. And that is the conclusion of my presentation. Happy to pass it along to Mr. Bauskas.
Just before we do that, are there any questions for Dinas?
I do have a question. I don't know if it's for Joe or Dinas, but the north driveway, will there be any limitations for making a left turn in if you were coming from the north or from the south?
My understanding is that is perfectly acceptable. Joe can go.
Okay, and then how many parking spots are on the north side? The concern I might have is that since it's kind of a one-way in and out, if those parking spots are full and the gas dispensaries are full, someone wanting to go to the convenience store is going to have to wait either for a parking spot to open up or for the traffic at the dispensaries to kind of flush through in order to get through there.
So great question. On the north side parking field, there are 10 parking spaces proposed, including handicap space. And then on the south side of the site, there are also 10 parking spaces. So there's a balance, half and half. Plus, again, we've got 8 positions at the fueling dispensers. So quite a bit of parking on site, 28 spaces where 20 are required.
Well, to Mr. Kiokio's question, yes, one option is you wait for clearance at one of the pump levels. Second option is you may well be able to get a path through between the building and that first set of pumps. Third option is you may also have a path through between the sets of pumps. So there are options, and of course the problem assumes that you will have lots of people parking on the north side and full pumps all the time without much of a break. So I hope that sheds some light.
Yeah, and I guess this was, I guess, a similar configuration than it used to be, right? It was a gas station with this, and the pumps are going to be in the same exact spot, and it operated for decades, I guess, as a gas station in this configuration. So is anything changed that you can't get by those pumps on either side? I know you said on the building side there's probably room. And did something change on the kind of on the road side of the pump that causes less room there for a car to pass?
No, the road edge or the island along the front edge, I don't believe has ever changed or ever been different. We are making the space or drive aisle between the building and the dispenser island closest to the building a little bit narrower to accommodate accessible or to accommodate handicap accessibility to the front of the store. Okay. So only a minor take on that driveway.
Got it. Okay.
Still,
Thank you.
still plenty of room for people to negotiate through the site.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And it's been a gas station since at least the early 70s, because that's when the location approvals and some variances were granted, as I said last time, for Atlantic Richfield to operate the gas station there. So it's been a while.
Yeah, actually, the original gas station was demolished and reconstructed in and about 1972, give or take. So
Thank you.
Since the last hearing date, and in my conversations with Jennifer, she asked me to ask Joe to do a little more of a detailed presentation, put a little more info above and beyond what he presented last time. So he's going to do that right now.
Joe, would you like me to stop sharing or leave it up?
Guys, I guess the one, yes, leave it for now for the time being for one quick point. The width between the pumps is what? The inside pump. What's the dimension? It's like 20 some odd feet.
It's about 22 feet between the bollards at the bollards at the edges of the dispenser islands.
All right, so 22 feet. So we have cars 6, 7 feet, 14 feet. So it's possible to squeeze a car between those, and between the building, between the sidewalk and that pump. I guess my point here is that there is room for vehicles to maneuver between the pumps. It's not 30 feet wide, obviously, but there is room to maneuver between the parked cars that are getting fuel and the building. So for the record, Joe Balskis, traffic engineer for the project. I'm going to give a brief presentation on the actual project itself that I kind of skimmed over last time, as Tom mentioned, because we didn't see any major issues, but have no issue at all with putting together a little presentation for the project. And I'll share my screen now. Let me get that here. All right, let me share screen 2, right? Screen 2. All right, and then put it in PowerPoint mode, slide. Okay, again, for the record, Joe Balskis, presentation, about 10 minutes of existing conditions and traffic generations and recommendations. And I will review some of the city comments that Attorney Beecher has referred to and that we're aware of, obviously regarding the driveways as well. So the presentation itself, existing conditions. This is based upon the traffic impact and the access study that we prepared that you've all seen, and documents the efforts on our part in terms of the existing conditions that are out there for this project. We know Germantown Road intersection is nearby. We know the fire station's nearby. We know there's Jimmy's nearby. We know it's a busy corridor. It's a connection between Danbury Hospital area as well as East Danbury and Federal Road. The proximity to the signalized intersection was an issue with the site drives that we talked about. Posted speeds, 25 miles an hour. And we also know we have some pretty good sight lines there. The site here itself is located, as you see here, showing the intersection and showing our study intersections, as we're calling them. The 2 site drives for the existing facility, as well as the signalized intersection of Sandpit Road and Great Plain Road and Germantown Road. Classification, we look at what roadway classifications are. What are functional characteristics of the roads that the site is abutting. And you see in this picture here, it shows a green line in the legend there from the Connecticut DOT is considering Great Plain Road and Germantown Road a minor arterial, minor urban arterial is what we'll call it. And then Sandpit Road is actually, they're considered as a local road, not even a collector. So this is a minor urban arterial in DOT's view, and Sandpit Road is a local road. Just give you a sense of the functional classification importance of the road. The DOT did some counts out there. This is from the DOT's website showing the vehicle, the count stations themselves. As you see here, the site is obviously right here. And you see, right here, excuse me, the site's right here. And you see about 12,000 vehicles per day on Germantown Road, and only 5,000 on Great Plain. I think this actually might be an error. I think this actually Sanford Road may be more higher volume than Great Plain Road. But there's obviously 7,000 cars going to Sanford Road as well. So this is DOT did 2 counts at the intersection in 2019. So in this location, 2019, we had some pretty good data. This is a snapshot of the DOT data as well, showing the morning bi-directional traffic volume about 1,000 vehicles in the afternoon, about 1,100, a little bit more in the afternoon, in both directions on Germantown Road itself. Next slide shows the vehicle classifications. And what are those? Those are what kind of vehicles: motorcycles, passenger cars, single unit box trucks, combo units being semi-trailers or trailers. And obviously almost 97% of the vehicles on Germantown Road during this traffic count were found to be passenger vehicles, and about 2%, 2.4% trucks. We typically see 3 to 5% trucks of daily traffic on a even roadway, an arterial. And this actually has lower truck volume than we expect to see on Germantown Road. And just a lot of detail here. I just want to run through so we're being a little clearer in terms of the traffic study itself. This also gives the speeds. This is from the speeds near the intersection. And what we look at for speeds is, and there's some debate about this, but the 85th percentile speed is what has been in the past a measure of a typical speed on a roadway. And we know it's posted for 25, and the DOT data is over the course of the entire day shows a little higher, 33 miles an hour of 85th percentile speed. But what we're doing these days now is we're looking at the 50th percentile. The 50% of the vehicles are traveling at or below. And it's lower. It's 28 miles an hour, which is a little more closer to 25, the posted speed limit. That's a better indication what we're seeing these days of speeds on a roadway. So we're not looking at high speeds here, and you're not going to find them here because there's a signal there. So the data is all day. There may be some speeds that are during a green light, but you've got a curve. So you're not seeing really high speeds, or I shouldn't say high, but much higher than the posted speed. We're not seeing that here, what we've seen in other locations. We also did traffic counts out here. DOT counted in 2019. We counted December 2022 at the intersection at Shepherd Road. We have volumes that we had the driveways as well. So we did an extensive traffic count program here. And we've got similar volumes of DOT. We have about in our afternoon count as an example, we have about 1,100 vehicles. So we've seen a similar volumes from 2019 before the pandemic actually happening out here on Germantown Road post-pandemic, if you will. So that's a good measure of the data that we have is good. We had good data before the pandemic, which is unique to have pre-pandemic, and we also have post-pandemic. And the numbers haven't really drastically changed here. So that's good to see. So then we look at traffic generation, and we obviously all know the ITE, Trip Generation Manual, and that the state Office of State Traffic Administration approves our methodology. And we look at the existing use, the proposed use, and we run that through our manual. Again, you following state procedures, policies on methodology. And this is not going to go to OSTA. It's a small project. It's not even going to go to DOT. However, we try to follow those procedures and policies and methodologies because we want to be conservative and we want to follow precedent in how we do our traffic impact studies. And this is a table fund report as you've seen before. I'll just walk you through it again. I mentioned last time there really wasn't much of a change in traffic generation in terms of increase, not significant increase. This, we are using ITE numbers for our proposed development, and that's what's shown here. Key thing with gas stations is that pass by trip. So the table you see here shows proposed gas station, convenience store, 8 fueling positions, so 120 vehicles in the morning peak hour, 150 in the afternoon peak hour. That's a lot of traffic, and that is traffic that would be generated by the proposed project. But we look at in terms of new traffic on the road. And we know that gas stations, that gas stations aren't necessarily a destination for users. It's typically almost always convenience. Driving by a station, you're on your route, you see the gas station, or that's on your commute, you go there. So we know that there's a lot of pass-by trips that occur with gas stations from previous studies. So we have a percentage here that we factor 60% of traffic being generated as pass-by trips, and then we give that to a total. So we're looking at, in terms of new traffic on Germantown Road, on Sandpit Road, or Great Plain Road, new traffic is less than 50 vehicles. Okay, so a lot of traffic that's going to go to this station, the gas station, is already going to be on the road. But new traffic that may come here because the gas station's here or the convenience store, we're looking at about 48 vehicles, less than 50 vehicles in the morning peak hour and then the afternoon peak hour. Again, that's new traffic on the road. The station itself can see 128 vehicles. They can in the peak hour, they can see that. But in terms of new traffic, and that's what we're looking at, our traffic studies look at traffic on the road. What's the impact to the intersection, the site drive, as well as the intersection? So that's the number we're looking at in terms of new traffic for our future conditions. Where are they all coming from? Where's all this traffic coming from? So we broke this down based on traffic volumes, based upon location, geography, and we're basically showing where from entering and exiting where they're going to Sandpit Road, to Germantown Road. There is some assumptions made there. We use the existing traffic volumes, but that's something we do as conservatively as possible to understand the impact at the driveways and where the traffic is going. We then do a capacity analysis at the driveways as well as at the intersection. Obviously, the intersection proximity to the driveways is important. It's 100 and some odd feet to the north driveway and 170 feet or so to the south driveway. That's important. We know level service is how we measure the operation of the intersection, and we look at it in existing as well as when this project will be open as a build. This table is in report, as you've seen. And this table, you look at this table in terms of the morning peak hour of Great Plain Road, Germantown, and Sandpit, and then Shepherd Road as well. Look at that separately in analysis. You have your peak hour condition, your AM, PM for both of those. You have your movements at the intersection, westbound, left, westbound, right, northbound, northbound, southbound. You have those movements. And then you have your volume to capacity ratio. How much volume is there versus the capacity of the intersection? When you get to 1, you have an issue potentially. We don't have any 1s here, as you can see here, anything close to 1. Your delays are in seconds per vehicle at the intersection. This is over the course of 1 hour, the peak hour, the morning peak hour and afternoon peak hour. Queuing, 50% queue, and 95% queue, and then obviously level service. So we look across this existing 2024 no build and build, and what we see here is that you look across, and this is based upon the software that we use that is required by OSTA and by Connecticut DOT, even though we're not going to them with an application, we follow those procedures. And you look across and you really don't see any changes in terms of level of service, minor changes in queuing, minor changes in delays, right? Very minor. But when you see a change in level of service, that tells you there's something going on. And you don't see that at any of these approaches, any of these movements in this table at the intersection. Yes, there is the westbound left is at a couple hundred feet long, and we are increasing that a little bit in the morning peak hour, a little bit in the afternoon peak hour. The average queue, the 50% queue is a little bit higher, but we're not seeing significant changes in delays. A 28 seconds delay is 29 seconds delay. 27.4 is 28 seconds delay. But the queuing is, and this is our design queue. This is okay, your kind of like your worst case. That this is what would happen if the signal has an operating issue, and then there's peak 50-minute traffic. So we're not increasing that a whole lot. There's a small increase there, but for the most part, you're really not seeing any changes in the volume capacity ratio, the delays, level of service, the queuing a little bit. We're talking about 14 feet here, a couple feet here. Here it's 10 feet. So there's really no changes in the theoretical queues from the analysis. So as I mentioned before, the site driveways proposed by city traffic engineer, those make sense. We're good with those as Attorney Beecher mentioned and Donnie's did as well. We're not seeing impacts to the intersection operation because we're looking at only 50 additional vehicles, and that's spread out. Some are going south, some are going north. So you're really not seeing a huge impact, significant impact. You would see that. There's an impact. You'd see these delays increasing. You'd see the VC ratios going up, way up, and they're really not changing as you look across this table. So what does that mean? The driveways are per city comments. We have good sight lines. We have crash data. There's no significant pattern on the crash data. We have good driveway operations with good level of service, and our signalized intersection maintains good operation at the adjacent signalized intersection. And that led us to our conclusion I mentioned last time will not significantly impact the traffic operation. So that's a little more detailed drill through the traffic impact study itself. And I do want to talk about quickly the city comments, if that's okay. I want to say, you want to stop me to stop here, Mr. Chair?
No, go right ahead.
Okay. So the driveways were, this plan shows that the city's traffic engineer's comment of the driveways. We've incorporated that, and then there's a sidewalk along frontage that's been being incorporated. We need to meet with city traffic engineer regarding the crosswalk here and other comments we have. We know they asked for video detection upgrade. They asked for stamped concrete versus traditional crosswalk. So our plan is to meet with them to kind of work on those issues and what makes sense. I will say, in terms of the intersection itself, you can see this in this plan right here. This is from 2020. The city just installed all new loop detectors in the pavement on the intersection. So these detection is less than 3 years old. So this is all new loop detectors in the road on all the approaches from the city installed. This is a city intersection. So that's we were concerned about the request to ignore that detection the city put in and install video detection. We didn't see a need for video detection when you have new loops that are working, as we understand it, in the road itself. They're only 3 years old. If they were 20 years old, you might have a consideration for video detection, but these are fairly new, meaning less than 3 years old and you can see them right here in the pavement. I mean, these are brand new from 2020. So that's something we need to meet with them about, as well as the stamped concrete crosswalk that's being asked for. So we expect to meet with them maybe next week and kind of resolve the request for what I'm seeing as, really, there's no need for video detection here when you have good detection in place and new detection, but we'll sit down with the city and trying to work that out.
Thank you, Mr. Bauskas.
Thank you, Joe. Mr. Chairman, at this point, we have some outstanding items. We need to file the revised plans that we unveiled tonight with the new driveway configuration. We need to see what we're going to do with the crosswalk. Abigail needs to conform her landscape plans to Dinus's final site plan. So we have a few loose ends to tie up. So that's all we have for tonight.
Thank you, Attorney Beecher. Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Anyone else in favor? Is there anyone else wishing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Anyone in opposition? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this application? Commission members, unless there's anything else, I will entertain a motion to continue.
I'm sorry, we have someone.
Mr. Chairman, there's someone that would like to speak.
Hi, Mr. Chairman, Helen Hofstetter would like to ask a couple, I'd like to go back and address the traffic flow through past the pumps. I have a question or two. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
I tried to squeak it in, but I didn't realize I put myself on mute again. So.
Go right ahead.
All right, well, I guess I'm concerned with, with the squeak through, so to speak, which we've been told that between the building and the first set of pumps, that there's room to go by there. So was there any work done to extend the building out front by a couple of feet that more than it had been over the years previous. That's question one. Question two is, if there is room to squeak by in that island, is there enough room for a person who's second or that finished pumping gas? Would they be able to, pull out and go around the car in front of them? Three, same question between pumps 1 and 2 and 3, in the middle there. Is the same sort of questions apply? I think you said we could go through and it wouldn't be too bad, but can each of the cars that are behind the first car get around them, without, because, you are arcing right and left, so it's not exactly the same thing as just going through. And then the third set that's closest to the road, so we're understanding that we can't, that cars can't go through there. I think there was a concrete, something concrete there. I don't know whether that's a curb up, but whether we can go through it all in that aisle. Those are my questions.
So I'll start and let Dennis perhaps put up the plan. So starting with the last part, the pumps closest to the road, that's probably your narrowest. I think it's 15 feet, Dennis, you can correct me on that. But between that gas pump, the outer gas pumps and the road is narrower than between the building and the first set of pumps, and much more narrow than the area between the two pumps. And so even if you're pumping and you're behind someone who's facing south who's still pumping, you might have to back up a little bit, but then you can go around, just like many of us do at pumps right now. Just in other words, that car finishing pumping is trying to do the same thing as someone who was parked over on the north side. Dennis? Yeah.
Well, just to clarify, you're talking about the two pumps that are closest to the road there?
Yeah, so the two pumps that are closest to the road are the two dispenser positions here. There's about 12 feet between the dispenser island and the curb that's required along the property line or along the frontage. And then again, in between the dispenser islands, about 22 feet. And then again, from this island to the walk in front of the building, about 15 feet or so. The building is not changing dimensionally. In fact, we're proposing to remove a building in the northeast corner, which currently juts out quite a bit further in front of the building. And again, to provide the landing necessary for operation of the doors, and to avoid some of these architectural elements that currently exist on the building. We needed to bump the sidewalk out just a bit to provide room for maneuverability. So, I mean, this gas station will function basically as it had prior to removal of the pumps some years ago.
Okay, so, and, backing up, if there's queuing, that might not be possible, but all right, I can see it's very tight. I don't know, you gave us feet wide, but I don't know, you put a big truck in there. I don't know how wide they are. So whatever, if you're telling me you think they, cars can get around and if back up and if they have to and get around and so it's not going to greatly impede the flow of traffic. I guess so.
Fortunately, the dispensers nowadays pump at a accelerated rate, so the fueling times seem to be a lot quicker, or maybe they just seem that quicker for me because I'm older now.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for and everyone for indulging my questions. Thank you.
Okay, I guess we were moving toward a motion to continue the public hearing until our next meeting, unless there's anything else.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, there's one more person that would like to speak.
Who is that?
Like Mr. Robinson.
Al Robinson, you don't
Yes.
see him?
Yes,
There.
hello, can you hear me?
Go right ahead.
Yes, good evening. My name's Al Robinson. I live at 7 Melrose Avenue. I've lived in this section of Danbury since the mid-1990s, and I've used that gas station several times in my years here. And one of the things I want to bring up is that the proposal here is to change this gas station, which was a gas station, a service station, into a gas station and a convenience store. And that is different. I hear people saying that this is basically the same. It's not going to be the same. There's a difference between a gas station with a service station where they're servicing vehicles versus using this same footprint for a convenience store. Just by the fact you having it changing it to a convenience store, you're going to have more traffic in that area. And I've always been very concerned about this particular intersection. It's a pretty tricky area. Whether you're coming from Osborne Street going towards Great Plain, or if you're coming from Great Plain, you're dealing with that intersection at Shepherd, and then you come in with the other intersection if you want to make a left turn from Great Plains onto Sandpit. It's a very tricky intersection, and you do have situations where you are queued up over there. And also remember that this particular intersection leads going down towards Sandpit. There's a lot of medical buildings in that area, so there is a significant amount of traffic throughout the day. This is a busy intersection. I can see situations where on Osborne going towards Great Plains, that left-hand lane can be backed up in terms of a queue. And, making that one turn on the one turn in on the driveway closest to the firehouse, I can see problems there when, if that one left lane is queued up, you can run into an issue. And if you're coming from Great Plains, you can have a situation where that service station, which is now going to be a convenience store, which is going to generate more traffic, can create a situation in that intersection that can be a problem. And I'm asking the members of the Planning Commission to be mindful of that, because again, yes, that service station has been there for a long time, but the use of this particular area is going to change. And as somebody who's lived in this area for a very long time, I can tell you, once you put a gas station and a convenience store in that area, it's going to be a boom, because there hasn't, that gas station, that gas station, there's no other gas station in this area. So once you put it back in that gas station back there, it's going to be a lot of traffic there. There's going to be a lot of people using that service station, especially with a convenience store. The only other gas station I can think of close to that area would be the one across the street from Three Brothers Diner. So that's going to be a major hub for convenience and gasoline for people within that area. You're going to see a significant difference. And when you have that with that particular intersection, you guys, you have this one chance now to get this right, because there's going to be problems if you don't get it right. And I'm just asking you to, as a resident who's lived in this area for a very long time and who's used that gas station plenty of times and can foresee problems there, please be mindful and get it right so we don't have any problems. All right. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robinson. Before I again ask for that motion, is there anyone else? Ally, can you see? I don't see anyone else looking to speak in opposition. I don't see it. So.
I don't see anyone as of right now.
Okay, unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion to continue.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion to continue.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 This matter will be continued till our next meeting. We'll go right to old business for discussion and possible action. Item 1, Bright Raven IS Danbury LLC property owner application for special by site plan for wireless communication facility, section 3E6P2 on existing rooftop with existing antennas by others, Dish Wireless LLC installation rooftop in the CA80 zone, 18 Old Ridgebury Road, C15008, special exception 793. A draft resolution has been circulated. Ally, did you want to speak to that?
Yes. So again, the grant of special exception or revised site plan is to permit the installation of a wireless telecommunications facility on the roof of an existing commercial building located at 18 Old Ridgebury Road. The project requires a grant of special exception in accordance with section 3E6. We have the standard whereases. And then one of note is at the bottom of page 2 that the subject property is located within the Airport Approach Zone District and the Airport Transition District of the Airport Protection Zone. And then for the conditions, we just have the standard conditions of approval there with a note regarding the airport administrator and the height increase of the structures. Do any of the commission members have any questions?
Questions for Ally, anybody? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion. All in favor of a positive, do you have a question, Bob?
Nope.
Helen,
Okay.
did you have a question?
Did somebody, decide we're going to pass this? I mean, I missed that. I'm sorry. I'm just asking, you're looking for a motion. Did we make the motion?
No, I was
Yeah.
asking somebody to make a motion. That was what I was doing right there.
Okay, I guess I didn't understand that. Okay, I'll make that motion to approve this with conditions.
A motion has been made to approve the draft resolution of approval with conditions. Is there a second?
I'll second
I'll
it.
second.
A motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 The resolution of approval with conditions is approved. We have 3 referrals on our agenda. The first one is an 824 referral, April 2023 City Council Agenda Item number 13. Application for renewal of sewer and water extensions, Great Plain and Great Meadow Road. Ally or Jen want to speak to that?
I'm going to take this one, Mr. Chairman. Jennifer Eminger, for the record, Deputy Planning Director. So you have before you, and I'm going to go through this really fast because I know you're all very tired and it's pretty late. So this is a request for sewer and water extension renewal. If you remember, we've seen this before, 4 times before. The request for sewer main extension came in 2014, based off of the Planning Department and Engineering Division reports. We had included, among other things, a density restriction for that sewer extension that it only serves 63 single-family dwelling units. The councils issued renewals on 2015, 17, 18, and the last one in 2020. All subject to the same conditions, restrictions of the 2014 approval. With respect to the request for the water main extension, this was granted in 2017 with that same density restriction. Council approved those renewals in 2018 and 2020. The department doesn't object to the renewal, subject to the same density restriction. Again, no more than 63 single-family dwelling units. The request has to extend the approval should also be subject to compliance with the zoning regulations, and also comply with all the additional requirements from Public Works and the Engineering Department, as well as Corporation Council. Any questions? I went through that really fast, so let me know if you have questions.
Any questions for Jen? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the request for sewer and water extension as per Jennifer's report.
So moved.
Okay,
Mo-
seconded.
A second from Helen. Motion made and seconded to approve the request for sewer and water extension on Great Plain Road. Is there any comments? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The sewer and water extension is approved. We're going right to the 8-3A referral. There are two of those. Petition for City of Danbury by Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend Section 3G11 of zoning regulations, revise electric vehicle charging station, EVC regulations, to comply with Section 5 of Public Act 2225. The public hearing is scheduled for April 25th of 2023. Jen or Ally?
I'll take this one too, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
So again, I'm going to go through this quickly. This amendment complies with Public Act 22-25, which requires for each new construction of a commercial or multi-unit residential building with 30 or more parking spaces, the inclusion of the electric vehicle charging station infrastructure in at least 10% of the parking spaces. If you remember during Legacy, Ben Dodo talked about that, was one of our comments. So again, 10% of the parking spaces is required for these charging stations. The infrastructure must be capable of supporting the level 2 EVC stations. We already have provisions for electric vehicle charging stations in Section 3G11. So we just built upon that existing section. And we've amended the text where appropriate. We included restrictions on the location, such as it can't be located in parking spaces and in loading spaces, and it cannot be located in the front yard. Also, additional restrictions include it can't be located in the landscape island or the required planting strip. And we've also included additional restrictions regarding signage and advertisements on these charging stations. The text amendment complies with Strategy 5 in the mobility section of the POCD, which recommends accommodating emerging transportation technologies. So does the commission have any questions? And staff recommends approval, so obviously, because we drafted the regulation, but I thought I'd add that in there.
Well, we don't really have much of a, we have to comply with Public Act 2225, right?
That's correct.
Well, it's not like we have a lot of leeway on this one or the next one for that matter.
That's true.
Commission, any questions for Jen on this one? Straightforward stuff. Electric vehicles are on the way. All right, unless there's any other comments, I'll entertain a motion to approve the petition to amend the zoning regulations.
With the, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, can you just note the, that it complies with the POCD?
Yes.
Thank
And
Ms.
the
Ma-
motion is to give a positive recommendation.
Yes. I'll entertain a motion for a positive recommendation.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for a positive recommendation because it fits with the plan, the POCD plan.
Thank you, Helen. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Right.
Aye.
Opposed? This amendment is approved. I mean, this referral is approved. We'll go right to the second 8-3A referral, petition of the City of Danbury by Sharon B. Calitro, Planning Director, to amend sections 2B, 3G, and 10B2 of the zoning regulations, establish outdoor dining establishments as a permanent accessory use to restaurants, amend the definition of an accessory use to clarify the size of accessory use in proportion to principal use, and add for a new outdoor dining accessory use permit pursuant to Public Act 22-1, Section 2, public hearing scheduled for April 25th, 2023. So Jen, here's another one where we have to comply with a public act, correct?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. So this petition amends sections 2B, 3G, and 10B2 to comply with a different public act. This is Public Act 22-1, which addresses the permanency of outdoor dining in the city. As a bit of background, I'm sure you all remember during the pandemic, the governor issued a whole slew of executive orders, and some of those have expired and some of them have been carried through and allowed for the temporary use of the outdoor space for outdoor dining. Public Act 22-1, which becomes effective May 1st, made permanent the allowance for licensed food establishments to engage in outdoor dining. This amendment defines the use as accessory to a restaurant and indicates that a permit is required and outlines the process and includes additional application requirements. I'll go through those in a second. I just wanted to briefly mention compliance with the POCD. That again, it complies with the POCD and it meets strategy 1 of the economic development goal of the POCD, developing clear requirements and a process for this outdoor dining accessory use supports economic development and provides opportunities for growth and development of city businesses. So I know it's late. If everyone has gone through the regulations, I was going to highlight, a couple of the bigger requirements. I can do that, or I can stop talking and the commission can vote. So I will leave it up to you. I don't mind going through it, but it's late. So I want to be cognizant of that.
Thank you, Jen. Well, let me first ask the commission if they have any questions at this point. Again, this is a matter to be taken up by the zoning commission for a public hearing, and we're only giving a referral, but I think we all remember the genesis of this whole thing. When COVID came, a lot of our area restaurants established outdoor to survive, as a matter of survival, established a place to eat outdoors. And I guess the point of this public act is to sort of formalize it and legalize it. And there's a permitting process now, so we can ask some questions rather than knee-jerk and just for a matter of survival, allow these things. We're going to be regulating them now. Is that a fair assessment, Jen, of what's going on?
It is. And again, this allows, and again, within the constraints of the Public Act, because we have to follow the Public Act, and Sharon has done that in this text amendment. It allows us to, attach additional restrictions, again, within the Public Act. And it really allows us, they tell us where they can go. They can go on sidewalks. They can go on off-street parking spaces. They can go on adjacent lots. So, but we, and what we do is through the text amendment say, okay, fine, but you have to be surrounded by fencing. We're only going to allow you to operate until 11 o'clock p.m. as an outdoor dining accessory use. Quickly, again, all of the requirements with respect to, again, it's not a knee-jerk reaction. We actually want to see a lot of this information. So this formalizes that process. And then there's the one particular important note is that the permits are only valid for 1 year from the date of issuance, and then you can request a renewal. So if there's a problem, if we've gotten complaints, the ZEO has the ability to review that and decide whether it's a yes or no. So it gives us a little bit of flexibility as well.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Anyone have any questions for Jen, or need any more explanation on this? Again, our recommendation goes to zoning and they'll have a hearing. Okay, if there's no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve the petition to amend the zoning regulations as submitted.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion for a positive referral.
Motion made for a
Second.
positive referral and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Okay, I'm sorry, can you make sure you add in the motion that it complies with the POCD?
Sure.
Thank you.
Make the motion that it complies with for a positive referral, including that it complies with the POCD.
And Perry will second it once again.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? The referral, this will get a positive referral from planning to zoning. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
There's a couple of things under new business you can take a look at. We have no correspondence and really no other matters for discussion and possible action. So unless there's anything else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion
Second.
made, seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Long meeting, everybody. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good work.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Good
Thank
job.
you for your
Night.
time.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.